Monster presents Heard on Thursdays, the iconic radio talk show that made Philippine FM radio talk. Winner of multiple KBP Golden Dove Awards. HOT. Heard on Thursdays. Your host, Nikki Porter.
Hey Monsters! Good evening and welcome to the show that made Philippine FM radio talk. That's Heard on Thursdays on the Monster. I'm your host this evening, Nikki Porter. I know it's been a while, Monsters, but we are going to be talking about something, admittedly, it is a little heavy, but it's also a natural part of life. Grief is a strange and often silent companion, and sometimes it shows up uninvited. It stays longer than we think it will, and sometimes it will change form just when we think we've figured it out. It's more than sadness, and it can feel like confusion, like anger, fatigue. Sometimes we even get numb because of grief. And what makes grief hardest is that the world keeps moving. Everyone is moving forward, but you still feel stuck in that moment, or you still feel like going back to that moment. And we're often told to be strong, to move on, to smile through it. But what if the real strength is in allowing ourselves to sit and feel it all and heal gently on our own time? Our guest tonight knows this intimately. She's gone through the thick and thin of life and has come out of it softer, stronger, and with a purpose that now holds space for others. Her name is Charity Marohombsar, and she's a stage 4 cancer survivor, a former C-suite executive, and she's a bunch of other things, but now she is a grief coach and a life doula. She's also the heart behind the Better Days Wellbeing Center, where healing meets humanity in its most vulnerable. We'll also be talking about the Living, Dying, Loving retreat happening this weekend. It promises to be a gentle, supportive space guided by tonight's guest, where you can be with your feelings, your memories, and your story. So tonight, let's welcome the woman behind it all. Heard on Thursdays, let's give a warm welcome to Charity Marohombsar. Hello.
Hello, Nikki. Good evening. Good evening, everyone.
Hi, Charity. So nice to have you on the show. And it's such an interesting fact about you. Stage 4 cancer survivor. And for you to go through that, like tell us what happened during that time, like that moment that you found out you were at stage 4, and then how did that change your life?
Okay, I think the bulk of the anxiety happened before the diagnosis.
Mm,
And this is what I always tell people, Nikki, my clients in my cancer coaching. A lot of times, my clients are the family members or the loved ones with cancer. And so, one of the requests I always get, Nikki, is let's not tell, say, my mom or my aunt or my dad that she or he has cancer. And what I always say is this: the person knows their body well. So we don't have to hide anything because they know. So I had that knowing feeling that while I was waiting for the tests, that it was malignant.
mm,
Everyone was telling me, it might be just, a case of misdiagnosis or something. Maybe it's not, but I had this knowing feeling it was malignant. So the suspicion phase happened a little before the holidays. So you can imagine December 2015 for me, everyone was celebrating and I was really just going with the flow because I was waiting for my PET scan result, which was going to come out in January. So
wow.
the anxiety that was building up was really more before the diagnosis.
Mm,
But during the diagnosis, I just had this unexplainable peace, right? But of course, when my sisters were there already, I started, it doesn't hit you right away.
Mm.
It took a few hours before it really actually sunk in. And one of the best things that I did, Nikki, which is going to be my advice to our audience, is do not consult your internet or Dr. Google.
Oh no.
Wait for your doctor to tell you because it'll just add and pile up
Yeah.
on already a very challenging situation. So I would say I was ready but not ready,
Mm.
right? But I made a resolve because of my children, especially because of my daughter, that I was gonna fight it. I was
Mm.
going to do everything that I can to be able to survive.
Oh
So
my
I
god.
had that conviction.
Yeah. And how long was this fight, if you don't mind my asking?
Well, the typical treatment plan would be 6 cycles.
Mm.
I went through 38
Oh my gosh.
cycles, and that
Wow.
was every week.
Oh my gosh.
Usually, people go through chemotherapy every 21 days. Mine
Mm.
was the reverse. I was having it every 7 days.
Oh my god.
And to top it all, I made also a resolve to be able to go to work. So I was undergoing treatment, I was working
Oh.
because my office, I felt like my office was just a stone throw away from the hospital. But
Mm.
more than anything, I think I knew myself more that if I was just going to stay at home and wait for the side effects of the treatment, I know I was going to go crazy. So,
Mm.
work was very therapeutic at the time. And I was very blessed to work with a really great family, one of the biggest conglomerates in the country. They were
Yeah.
very considerate, they adjusted all my meetings. I couldn't have experienced this. They made it really, really easy for me. So the support was very, very, very important in the cancer recovery process.
Yeah, absolutely. 36 cycles? Oh my
38
gosh.
cycles of
30.
chemotherapy,
Yes.
38, and after that, I had to undergo another 33 sessions of radiotherapy
Oh wow. My god. And that was also once a week, I'm guessing.
every day.
Every day.
Every
Okay.
day except Saturday and Sunday.
Oh my.
So my first appointment for the day was my radiation.
Mm.
So I would run to the hospital, and after my radiation, I would go back. I would go to work.
How did you manage though? Because as far as I know, like in some of the symptoms of chemo is that there was hair loss. There's also there's retching, like you throw up. So how did you handle like the symptoms even while you were working?
Well, nowadays, especially for breast cancer, we have
Mm-hmm.
very good pre-medications, right?
Oh.
So I did not go through the usual vomiting that you see with other patients. And there was just extreme pain because mine was metastatic breast cancer. It was literally in all parts of my bones.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So I had to give up wearing heels. I switched to wearing flats and literally threw away fashion sense because I would go to the office um, wearing a suit but wearing, uh, you know, rubber shoes. And I've come to embrace that because it was safer for me to do it.
Sure.
The hardest where you see you memorize, your body memorizes the chemo side effects. So there's a
Yes.
pattern. On the first
Mm-hmm.
day, you're still okay. On the second day, you feel kind of loopy and everything parang slows down. On the third day, whether you like it or not, you need to lie down and rest. And this to me was the hardest thing I had to adjust because I was used to working, productivity is the peg in the corporate world.
Sure.
The hardest for me was learning how to rest. Rest did not exist in my vocabulary at the time. And this is really, I always say this, Nikki. This is I had the perfect formula for acquiring cancer. You see, only 5 to 10% of global cancer cases are genetically in nature. So parang hereditary.
Mhm.
90% is really environment and lifestyle, which includes sleep, stress management, your food, movement, exercise, alcohol, name it, right? So I had all of that. So perfect formula. So
Mm.
if you ask me, how did I get it? I think it was my lifestyle. I didn't know how to take care of myself. I didn't know how to love myself in that sense. I had
Mm.
no downtime for myself. Vacation doesn't exist because even if we travel as a family, I still work.
Wow.
So, of course, 8 years, that was my life 8 years ago. Now it's completely different. And this is one of the reasons why I decided to leave corporate life.
Yeah. So, can you share with us then, like, with this battle with stage 4 cancer, how did this reshape your perspective on life, on your purpose? You said you had, you had this life that in corporate, and then now you're out of it. So, how did the cancer, I guess, play and reshape your perspective in living your life now?
Nikki, I'd like to start by saying breast cancer is very survivable if you detect it early.
Mm.
But once you enter a late stage, and late is like 3C4, stage
Mm.
4, the cure is no longer guaranteed. And the the length of time that you need to undergo treatment can go on for years. I have clients now who have been doing chemo for the last 4 or 5 years. And when I went through it, there was 8 of us. I was the only one who survived from
Mm.
that eight. I had to say this because it had such a huge impact on the way I viewed life, the
Mm.
way I don't want to say I threw all my dreams out of the window. I just had to ask myself a very hard question. Like, if I get through this, will I continue to live the same way? Or do I value life and really start revisiting my priorities? And being in the hospital almost every day to see my doctor, to go through treatment, to get checkups in between, to get blood drawn, I have had the the honor of holding space. At the time, I wasn't a life doula yet, but I realized I had an appetite for taking care of people, for really sitting with them, holding space. And that started to crystallize while I was undergoing my own cancer treatment. I would go around St. Luke's Global with my chemo drip, and I was moving from one cubicle to the other.
Mm-hmm.
So that changed my life completely because 8 months after I was cleared, I was declared, you are not declared on remission until the 10th year. So I have 1 year to go. Um, but I got my no evidence of disease first time. I had to really think about how I will live my life. And the life purpose was starting to unfold.
Mm.
Things were happening at the office, the usual zealousness and excitement that I feel every day. I still had that, but I was more excited, really, holding space for cancer patients.
Mm.
And I also saw before my eyes this huge gap in the way cancer patients are managed. And it's not just in the Philippines, it's also very true globally.
Mm.
Most The healthcare system is very disease centric. What does that mean? They focus on shrinking the tumor, but oftentimes the person behind the diagnosis is forgotten.
Mm.
Oftentimes, questions like, how are you really? What keeps you awake at night? How do you feel right now? How are you even surviving this every week chemotherapy? No one asks that question. So there's a lot of areas in the person's life that is not part of the healing journey when in fact it's the whole person that needs to be given attention. So I saw this and no one was doing it. And I told myself, this is probably a space that I can help people.
Mm.
So 2018, I left corporate. And in the next 2 years after that, right before the pandemic, I was just really holding space for people. It wasn't even a business. It wasn't,
Mm.
I did not start my coaching business until I think around 2019, right? But all the time I was just trying to understand what people were going through and what was missing in the piece
Mhm.
and what were the gaps. And so I started formulating programs to be able to address the gaps.
Yeah. And you're a grief coach now and you're also a life doula, but I'm curious, since you found your new purpose now, is there a role that grief played while you were going through your stage 4 cancer diagnosis?
At the time, Nikki, I did not know it was grief. I was just frustrated. I was disappointed.
Mm.
And perhaps at some point angry that I was looking for the woman that I was before the diagnosis.
Yeah.
I couldn't I couldn't read emails as fast as I want to. I couldn't think on my feet. You know, chemo brain is real. It really slows down your brain. And sometimes I try to answer emails. I am reading them, but my brain couldn't catch up. Right. So I
Mm.
was so upset. And only when I started holding space for other people did I realize it was grief. I
Mm.
was grieving for the person that I was before cancer because grief is not only about losing someone. Grief is about the major changes that you go through in life. I mean, you a lot of people, we know this, Nikki, during the pandemic, a lot of Filipinos moved to Canada and they moved so quickly and went to other places, other countries. I mean, I have a friend who went through depression. It was really grief because she literally had to haul her whole family out in a month's time after they got, an approval from the embassy. When you
Yeah.
lose a job that you've had for many years, you grieve for that.
Mhm.
When you break up, when you leave a relationship, you go through grief. So at that time, I didn't know it was grief. Now I know it was. And what led me to become a grief coach was I wanted to be more equipped with the tools to be able to handle myself because in 2020 and 2021, I was losing clients almost every month.
Mm.
It came to a point when, my coach, Kimi Lou, I told her, I don't want to do this anymore. It's too sad. And she said, I don't know with you, but if you are not going to do it, I won't do it. Even if I'm paid so much money, I won't do it. It's hard. It's very emotionally draining.
Yeah.
So I realized probably I needed more tools to be able to manage my grief. So I enrolled in a grief certification by no less than the grief guru himself, David Kessler. I did it because I wanted to be able to manage my grief, but little did I know that it was a service that was going to fall under the Life Doula brand. So, as a life doula, I'm a cancer coach, I'm a grief coach, and I'm also an end of life doula, meaning if you're diagnosed terminally, it's so hard to process that reality. And a lot of people do not even want to prepare, even if it's staring at them right in the face, right?
Right.
So I help patients process and guide them through acceptance. And it doesn't end with the patients.
Hmm.
I also hold space for the family as well.
Yeah. So you becoming a grief coach came after becoming a life doula.
So the
And
Life Doula brand was created um, to be able to, first, the service that I offered was for cancer coaching. Nikki, the doula word is really the original doulas are the birth doulas. I know you're very young, so you probably have not heard of this, but there are birth doulas. And
mm,
I think the past 2 years, they have been more birth doulas. And in the Philippines, we already have birth doulas here.
oh,
So doula is a word that is referred to for women like me who take care of other people. So that's the brand Life Doula. But in a span of 2 years, I just realized that there were three services that I could offer to people, all interconnected. And
hmm,
the right in the middle of that is grief.
yeah. And I love that, this life doula concept. I actually have heard of it like from TV shows before. And I love the concept of it, but then most of the doulas that I know or have heard of are end of life doulas. And I think that also is that also plays well into like the grief coaching part, because they're gonna grieve a life that they wish they could have in the future but no longer can.
Yes.
And I think it's hard, right? It's hard to come to terms with that. And does the end of life doula only work with those with terminal illnesses, or are is there another?
Those with chronic illnesses that eventually will progress.
Hmm.
So I have patients with Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and those with other chronic diseases. But the bulk of my patients are really cancer patients who are terminally ill, especially those that have been shifted to life prolongation measures or what we refer to as palliative care,
Yeah.
right? So I work with different doctors. I work with geriatric doctors for the old people, for the elderly, and I work with medical oncologists
Mm.
for the ones with cancer. So it's actually a 1 year certification course that you take. So I always refer to it as parang you went through a crash course of medicine because you as an end of life doula you need to understand the top 15 causes of death, right? While we are a non-medical practitioner, it's important for us to understand what's happening physiologically when a person is about to die. And a lot of times we think it's the signs are just cuento lang, these are just stories, but there's actually a science behind it, right? So um, it was hard for me to do it during the pandemic
Hmm.
because it's part of my work is to be able to physically hold the patient. So I
Hmm.
know if the patient is starting to transition.
Yeah.
Um, so, I don't know if our audience is finding this interesting. We're talking about this at 10:41, but this is something that I think there's only two end of life doulas in the country.
One of them is you, I'm guessing.
Yes,
Mm.
and one is uh, someone that I know, and I really wish there's more
Hmm.
because our doctors are also swamped with so many cases that's happening, and they need people like us who who are non-medical practitioners who can really spend time with the family and talk
Right.
to them about a very bad prognosis.
For sure. And I love that you mentioned, like, like, as much as doctors, they care for the patient in the best way that they can in, trying to, either take out a tumor or try and shrink it. That's such a huge weight that's on them, and it's not necessarily their fault also that they can't hold the space, as you like to say,
Yeah.
for those patients who need it. And I think it's a lovely idea for, to have more of these doulas around, grief coaches also, so that, there are more people who can actually feel seen, understood in the pain and the struggle that they're going through. And I think it's such a, and I then my point in saying this is that I personally find this very interesting, because it's a difficult subject for sure to talk about, and a lot of people don't really feel comfortable talking about it as well. So it's very enlightening for sure, and for sharing your story with it. And you mentioned earlier also, when you said that, you're guessing that the reason why you had that cancer diagnosis was that you didn't really know how to take care of yourself, and you didn't love yourself at the time. How now has have you been cultivating self-love, in your recovery and in the way that you support others?
Okay, that's really an important question that you ask, because a lot of times people think the last treatment that a cancer patient undergoes, that's it, you're done.
Mm,
Actually, you look at the cancer journey as, my metaphor is always a fish, right? The head is that part where you undergo treatment. The
mhm,
whole body of the fish, which is the biggest chunk, is your survivorship years.
mm,
And there is no after cancer care program in place to really give a survivor like me like a roadmap. This is how you stay cancer free, or this is how you lower the risk of cancer recurrence,
mhm,
right? You just go back to your doctor when it's time for you to do your surveillance tests. But after that, what? It's a big, huge black hole for many cancer survivors. Like, there's so many things that cancer survivors go through. Like, how do I re-enter?
mhm,
Um, how do I re-enter this life again, knowing that I deal with image issues, my body issues, all the gamut of challenges and issues and what ifs that you have in your mind, right? So, in my case, I had to put together my own survivorship program for myself. And that starts with being able to sleep 7 to 8 hours a day. That's one of my non-negotiables, and it's kind of hard when I have patients who are in critical conditions, because I need to answer the phone past my bedtime. But I make an exception for that. But
mhm,
for the most part, sleep is very sacred. I call it, these are my holy, for lack of a better analogy, my holy trinity. Sleep, 6 hours is the minimum.
mhm,
7 to 8 hours is ideal. Next is nutrition. I
mhm,
say sleep is really right up there, because if you don't sleep well, then you just have this huge craving for many things. I don't know if you noticed that. So,
mm,
nutrition is impacted. So, it's been like 2 years since I shifted into a semi plant based diet,
mm.
more like balanced plate, because I don't see myself being 100% um, plant-based person, right?
Mhm.
And movement is very important. The misconception out there is, if you've gone through cancer, you cannot move. When in fact, as you grow older, as you lose, bone power, You
Mm-hmm.
have to do a lot of strength training. You have
Yeah.
to move. You have to be able to sweat out all the toxins in your body. So, what I have done in my calendar, because I was such a calendar junkie, Nikki, because my life depended on it. And here's a tip for you and for everyone: carve first your me time before you put in any other schedule. So in my case, Wednesday is my me day. That's when I get to do stuff not related to work. It could be reading, it's just resting.
Mm-hmm.
So I put it right in the middle of the week because a lot of times, since I manage a cancer community center, a physical brick and mortar center, our weekends are packed. So I already put Wednesday. It's not even in my Calendly because it's booked. So that's
Mm.
for me, right?
Yeah.
If I can't have a Wednesday, I would carve hours for myself, and that's non negotiable. It doesn't appear when clients book a session with me. That's
Mm-hmm.
already mine. Because I know that if I don't do that, I'm just gonna fill it with coaching sessions and classes and meetings, and I'm back to zero again.
Sure. And yeah, and I love that you were able to figure out what you wanted to do now, post your cancer journey and then now in your survivor journey as well. So for for you to be able to help others, you put up Better Days Wellbeing Center. So what was the inspiration behind it? And what is your mission in opening or starting Better Days?
Better Days Wellbeing Center is a non medical facility where we offer mind, body, spirit programs, and we call these interventional programs. So, right now we have two flagship programs. Recover Strong is really for cancer patients.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the reality: your body cannot just recover from cancer just purely by modern medicine. You have to be able to support your emotional and mental well being because cancer may be a physical disease, but the battlefield is in the mind. If
Mm.
you don't do mental housekeeping as often as you can, you'll really give in to the challenges of this journey.
Mm.
Spiritual, staying connected, staying grounded. We teach people how to prepare their own food in a healthy way. We teach people how to live a non toxic home, meaning we get rid of all the toxic chemicals. We teach people what materials to use so the risks of them exposing to toxic chemicals is lowered.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the things and the programs that you won't normally find in a hospital setting are the programs that we do in Better Days. And it starts with the month, kicking it off with a session for newly diagnosed cancer patients. What to expect in the cancer journey. When I was diagnosed with cancer, nobody gave me a manual to say, here, this is what you expect. I had to learn through it while I was, making the mistake of not eating, avoiding all types of food when in fact I should nourish my food with the right food, right? So all our experiences put together, we put it in a class to make sure we're able to help not just the cancer patient but the families.
Mm.
How do they deal with this? Especially because we don't have a robust healthcare system in the country. So the biggest problem that coincides with the cancer journey is also the financial, you know, um, problems that medical bills mount,
Right.
and they don't know where to get, and it adds to the stress of the patient, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these are the things that we do in Better Days, and so we do virtual classes, we do in person. Um, classes as well. And as I mentioned, we have two interventional flagship programs. It's the Recover Strong for cancer patients and the Heal Strong. It's a survivorship program.
Okay. And I love that there's a structure to it. Like this is what the center provides for cancer patients newly diagnosed as well, so that they can know what to expect. It's like
Mhm.
what to expect when you have cancer, like that book when you're expecting. But anyway, but like in terms of like this well-being center, it's very thoughtful of like how it's how it's providing support for these kinds of clients that you have. And so how does the center integrate these medical therapies, right, with your holistic modalities to support those affected by cancer? And is it only cancer patients that are a part of this well-being center?
We cater to three types of audience: the cancer patients, meaning those on active treatment; the cancer survivors, those who have are done with treatment but are at a loss with how to re-enter or to begin life again.
Mhm.
And very important is we have what we call a love giver circle. And
Mm.
this is also a segment that we are taking care of. These are the families taking care of loved ones who are sick with cancer, because they too need someone to hold space for them.
Sure.
They get tired, they get burned out, and it's real, right? They have their own set of challenges. So we have a group taking care of that. So for now, they are the three segments or audience that we cater to. And we work very closely with medical oncologists. So
Mhm.
they look at us as partners or support in taking care of the patient. So we do not do anything that's not known to the medical oncologist.
Okay. I love that. It's the first time I'm actually hearing like there is this kind of support that you can actually get in the Philippines, and also the first time I'm realizing that we have these doulas, right, locally. And I used to think it was just something that was like very foreign.
Mhm.
The concept was very foreign. I mean, doula is not English or Tagalog anyway, so it's a foreign concept, but such a needed one. Anywhere, actually, anywhere
Yeah.
where you experience grief, illness, all of these things. And so for the well-being center, like what is the mission now with this living, dying, loving retreat?
Mhm.
Hmm.
Okay, so I do this every year,
Hmm.
and I have had clamor for doing it more frequent, except that I really need to divide my time, especially that another project that is part of Better Days is also going to start. We're building a hospice up in Tanay.
Wow.
There are very few fully assisted facilities that are really
Mhm.
well equipped.
Yeah.
So I think there has to be alternative for people who have chosen to not undergo medical treatment. It's
Mm.
always a choice. I really believe in that even if you're sick, you have a choice. So this is one of the things, this is one of my advocacies, right? Really empowering cancer patients to be active participants in their journey and to be very, very proactive as well in what's being offered to them as options, right? So, but going back to living, dying, and loving, it's a grief retreat. And I was going to say, pwede ka na maging grief coach, Nikki, because you have a very solid and clear understanding about grief.
Oh, thank you.
A lot of times, and this is not just a cultural thing like in the Philippines, a lot of patients and clients that I know, even if it's very evident that the loved one is terminally ill, they still do not want to prepare,
Yeah.
right? And I always say preparation is an act of love. If you really love your family, you need to plan, you need to prepare. You want to unburden them of very emotional decisions that they will have to make later on,
Yeah.
right? So, living, dying, and loving is a retreat focusing on grief, but also the whole process of understanding how people get to a dying state.
Mm.
So the loved ones get to understand. Because I realized when the families are very aware, they're grounded, they know that their loved ones have a couple of months left,
Mm.
we're able to elevate the dying process. And it need not be all sad all the time. I mean, sadness is going to be there, but if you're able to plan, then you can really curate the last few months of the person's life, right? I have had clients who opted not to do a typical funeral. We do what we call a living funeral. I'm sure you've heard of life celebration. So
Yes.
I've had several clients that while they were still able to talk, answer back, up and about, we do life celebrations for them. So it helps with the grief when people go through that. So, but living, dying, and loving is really a grief retreat. It's really creating a safe space where people can talk about what they're going through, because the common thing I always hear is we don't talk about my dad or my mom, whoever is a person who passed away. We
Yeah.
don't, families don't talk about grief. Families don't like to talk about the dying process. I mean,
Hmm.
who wants to discuss it? I used to be one of them. Like, let's not talk about it because we might attract,
Yeah.
baka mapadali, di ba?
Yeah.
Parang, we don't want to talk about it because my mom or my dad would feel na parang gusto ko na ba siyang mamatay. But
Right.
actually, it's the most practical thing to do.
Yeah.
It allows families to be able to prepare and really not wait till the last minute when a person is dying.
Mm.
So all of this is discussed in Living, Dying, and Loving. Each person's grief is different.
Hmm.
And contrary to what people think, there are no stages of grief because grief is not linear. You
Yeah.
know, the stages that people talk about, the stages of denial, anger, acceptance, those stages are for the terminally ill patients. It's not for grief. Because you really straddle back and forth when you're grieving. You think today you've accepted the loss of your loved one. Tomorrow, or maybe late in the day, you just get hit by grief.
Yes.
Just because you smelled something that reminded you of your loved one, or you
Hmm.
heard a song, or you passed by a favorite restaurant. It really sneaks in. And before you know it, your day is shot. You're totally immobilized. And
Right.
a lot of times people think that grief is a problem they need to fix. It is not. It's a process we all need to go through.
Hmm.
I mean, talk about grief. We've lost people the past couple of days, people that we know of.
Hmm.
Maybe we don't know them personally, but I mean, I found myself crying last night rewatching the movie Two Popes
Hmm.
just because I'm an avid fan of Pope Francis, right? I mean, I think the whole world is grieving. Those who believe in him, those who love him. And of
Right.
course, we've lost local celebrities. It's just like its death is so palpable the past couple of days,
Right.
and everyone's grieving. I'm a grief coach, and I was grieving. Um, and there's no getting out of it. The only way through it is to really go through it.
Hmm.
There are no corners that you can cut, right? So all of this, the misconceptions we will discuss, and there's no formula for it. We will just
Yeah.
talk about how they feel. And a lot of times, just being able to name what they're going through helps a lot.
Yeah.
So it's a 2 day thing. It's You can go home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and come back again. It's going to be on the 26th and the 27th at Better Days Wellbeing Center in
Mhm.
White Plains. And we have a few more slots open, but it's a very intimate retreat. It's not full packed with so many people where people do not know each other. The
Mhm.
goal is to be able to create a small community for you who
Yeah.
understands what you're going through, who speaks the same language as you do,
Mhm.
and most importantly, a community who doesn't judge what you're going through. I
Yeah.
think it's very important.
I agree. And it's happening this weekend for those who are interested, for those who are grieving, who want to be there for their loved ones as well. And I think it's something that, many of us can try and will like need better understanding of, because again, for some of us it's like, maybe we think that crying is a sign of weakness, or that you shouldn't cry about this person, or that you're just not used to crying, which was why, like, to to express those kinds of emotions when it comes to grief, it's a completely natural thing. It's like a release that your body needs, so that it can express the kind of, how much of the connection and the love that you felt for somebody in your life,
Yes,
or only for somebody in your life.
I always say that grief is another name for love,
Hmm.
because grief is love with no place to go, because the
Oh
person
yeah.
is not there anymore, right? And I love what you said earlier when you were doing your intro. A lot of times, what do we hear from people? Be strong, you
Hmm.
know? And here's what I can say about that: you don't have to be strong all the time.
Hmm. Yeah.
And this is where self care plays a huge role when you're grieving. The number one person that you need to take care of is yourself. If you have kids, your children. Everyone else takes a back seat.
Mhm.
What you have to honor what you feel. It's okay to say no. It's okay not to be around when people invite you to lunches or dinners.
Mm.
Because when you're grieving, you're everyone's happiness project. People look at you and say, I want to make her happy
Yeah.
at their own time, at their own pace. And this is where self care is really, really important.
Mm.
Self care includes boundaries, right? Not being able to answer calls when you don't feel like talking to someone, it's okay.
Mhm.
Because a lot of times we're compelled to talk to people, we're compelled to attend, you know, lunch and dinner invites or even brunch invites. But if it doesn't resonate with you, don't do it.
Mhm.
And if it matters to you, then how it's seen by other people is not really your problem, right? So these are concepts that we're all new to, that I myself learned when I was undergoing my grief certification. That
Mhm.
pwede pala that you can say no to people. A lot of times, especially as Filipinos, we can't say no. Oh,
Mhm.
you're invited to have dinner at this place and you're not just ready to be
Mhm.
among many people. And you can say no. That's fine.
Yeah. And it's like when you were actually talking about the retreat, I'm not gonna lie, I started to feel some feelings, because you think about, the people in your life also who you've lost. And see, my voice is cracking. Charity.
Sorry.
No, no, no. And this is such an important topic, diba? So like when we talk about grief, can you just talk to us about, so there are no stages, or there's no particular sequence of events, right? How does one sit with it if they don't want to but they have to? What can they do?
I have one word for them, and that is allow. The lesser you fight it, you just allow things to happen. If you're sad, you're sad. Allow things to happen. The less resistance you give it, the less painful it will be. I had to hold space for a friend who lost her husband also suddenly, and I'm sure she will not mind me mentioning her name. Her name is Lisa Dikia. She lost her husband when her husband was in Spain. It was so sudden.
Yeah.
And there are days when she would just pick up the phone, call me, and tell me, Charity, I'm just staring at the rice cooker. I don't know how to operate it.
Mm.
Grief immobilizes you, right? So I would tell her, Liz, do you see what do you have? Send me a picture of the kind of rice cooker that you have.
Mm.
So you press this, and it's not because they all of a sudden felt, you know, like they don't know how to do it. It just immobilizes people.
Yeah.
I've had clients that they decided to like go somewhere, and all of a sudden they turn back their car, and even if they're dressed, they just don't want to see people,
Mm-hmm.
right? So these are the things that people go through, and sometimes they don't know how to navigate through it. Like, what if I don't want to touch any of the things? Then don't. But mago 1 year na. People say I should keep his stuff. Where is it written that you have to keep the stuff
Mm.
after 1 year? It all boils down to how ready are you. I lost my second mom 2 years ago. I have been planning to keep her stuff for almost 2 years now, and her room remains untouched. I'm not ready. So I'm not going to move.
Mm-hmm.
So allow yourself to go through it. Sit with your emotions. And here's another thing, grief and joy can coexist.
Mm-hmm.
Don't feel guilty if you're happy. If you find yourself laughing, it's okay. Diba, a lot of times we're brought in this society where bawal tumawa because someone passed away in your family.
Right. Yeah.
It's not true. Joy and grief, sadness and happiness can coexist.
Yeah.
They say the best, if there's such a term, the best grievers are children. When they
Mm.
remember their loved one, they cry. But after they're done crying, they play
Yeah.
with no guilt at all. While we adults, we are so mindful. Bakit, people might find me weird that I'm not wearing black. I'm
Mm.
wearing colorful clothes. I have taken that out in my family. Like when we lost a relative, we say, wear what you want to wear. I mean, your love is not measured by what you wear,
Right.
right? And you being happy, you smiling, you laughing, I'm sure the person that you lost would want to see you smiling and laughing.
Mm-hmm.
So these are things that we want to be able to normalize in the grief retreat.
Wow. And again, such a so insightful and so helpful. I mean, it's helpful to me right now, and I can only imagine what the retreat can cover also. And it's called once again living, dying and loving. I also wanted to mention that there I believe you discussed like unconventional ways to navigate, these journeys of life. So and there's a term like living life backwards.
Mhm.
So what does that mean for monsters who are listening in order for them to understand?
Living life backwards is accepting that death is certain. It's gonna come. It's
Mm.
just a matter of when. And this is one of the gifts. Cancer is never good. But if you're able to harness the gifts, it gives you a you know a basket full of gifts. When I saw that the possibility of me dying, I was able to literally prioritize things in a snap of a finger,
Mm. Yeah.
because I asked myself, what if I only have 3 years, or probably two, or probably one? What if I don't recover from this? Living life backwards is accepting that death is certain. It's gonna come. It's a beautiful perspective to life. Living life backwards is living intentionally, knowing that death is certain.
Mm.
You suddenly don't wait for an occasion to express to people how much you love and care for them. So after I got well from cancer, when a person comes to mind, I text and I call them right away. I don't wait and say, I'll call them the next week, or no. And I don't wait for special occasions to give gifts. My love language is
Mhm.
gifts. So
Yeah.
I when people get something from me, they'll say it's not my birthday, and I would always say, why wait for a special occasion? I mean, this is the truth, Nikki. Tomorrow is not promised.
Hmm.
It is not. I mean, I was so scared I was going to die in 2016, and I lost three friends who were healthy,
Wow.
who were not sick, and
Mm.
they all passed on way earlier than I'm still here, right? So living life backwards is living life intentionally, knowing that death will come.
Mm.
So
Okay.
you don't have regrets, right? Being able to prioritize life and not just waiting for life to happen, but really being intentional with how you live, with the choices that you make, right?
Yeah. I love that you were able to share that what living life backwards means, because it reminded me of what my Lola shared with me, my late Lola. She shared with me, I can't remember. I think I was in high school. But it was enlightening, but even at that age, when she said, she was already in her old age then, and when she said, like, well, we're dying right now, even if you don't have an ailment or anything, it's only like a matter of time. And I know that sounds dark, but that is the reality. Like, there is an end to life
Yeah,
eventually.
yeah.
And when she said that, it was kind of like, oh, that's actually a really philosophical but good point. That
It's
she,
really true. The minute we were born, the clock is ticking,
yeah.
right? They
Hmm.
say this is your timeline. You're born here. At some point, you're going to die. Again, it may sound dark, but this is the reality. So,
Hmm.
what you do in between is what will matter, because literally, you come to this world with nothing, you're gonna go with nothing.
Hmm.
So, make your priorities right. And a lot of times, the problem is we all think we have time,
Yes. Yeah.
right? But when you start thinking that you might not just have the time, then you live and approach life so differently.
Hmm.
You're not just living anyone's life, you're living your own life, because you are intentional with the choices that you make.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, I'd give up anything for being young like you, but there are also gifts to someone. I'm 2 years shy from being a senior, and people say, you've lived at least 70% of your life, or probably lower, because our life expectancy rate in the country is quite low,
Mm.
um, unlike Japan, where they reach 100 and all of that. But
Yeah.
I think ours is 72 for men and 77 for women.
Wow.
So I mean, once you hit 50, I'm 20 years shy from there. And what if something happens in between? So live life as if, as Steve Jobs said, live life as if today is your last. So
Mm.
do everything that you want to do, be intentional, surround yourself with the people that matters most. One of the gifts of cancer again to me is being able to apportion my energy to the
Mm.
right people. So I if I know that this person is quite toxic, I put that person in the outer ring of my life
Mm.
and only put the people that really matters within the first two or three rings of my life. And that's part of being intentional with life, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And again, such a great conversation that I'm I'm having with you, Charity. It's like I'm trying, like earlier in this show I was actually holding back, like, because I was like starting to feel the wave come in, right? Because it comes in waves. Grief comes in
yeah,
waves, and you
yes,
just have to ride it. You have no choice. And but it gives like so much hope, right? Also, when even when you know that life is finite, it gives you hope on how you want or you can live your life.
yes, yes.
And for you, how do you help individuals cultivate healthy hope amidst the uncertainties in between that point A and point B?
I love that you qualified the hope because I think hope is our response to the fact that God wakes us up every day,
Mm,
right? Whether you are chronically ill or you're going through cancer, for as long as God wakes us up every day, then there is a reason to hope. However, at some point, I call this walking the two roads. When you're undergoing cancer, I always advise my clients, my coaches, to walk the two paths, the two roads. The one road is hoping for the best, meaning you make the right choices for the kind of treatment that you want.
mm,
Go for whatever is comfortable for you. And the other road is preparing or planning for the rest.
mm,
I walked those two paths. At some point when I just felt like I couldn't, it's so hard to grapple and find a very clear picture of hope when you're in pain, when you don't even know where the pain is coming from, when
mm,
you're also in debt because of medical bills, right? So that's one of my roles as a life doula is to be able to help them see where hope is. A lot
mm,
of times patients would say, pagod na ako, I've come this far, and I'll tell them, exactly. Look at how far you have come.
mm,
And it's the time to give up, right? But having said that, when things are not going well, I think it's also healthy to plan for the rest. I mean, I always say planning is an act of love. So
mm.
hope is something that we should never, ever lose. You can lose a lot of things, confidence, money, but hope is something that you cling on. But at some point, you have to be able to shift it to what I call pragmatic hope.
Mm.
Really journeying with whatever disease you have with eyes wide open,
Yeah.
knowing when to just go for quality of life and not put your whole family in debt and just say, okay. I have clients, Nikki, who would tell me, I'll undergo treatment, but I'm only going to spend up to here. If
Mm,
nothing happens, because I have two kids, I want to make sure that I do not leave my wife in debt. So I
mm,
will only avail of treatment up to here. And that's such a pragmatic way of approaching the journey. So pragmatic hope is to me the right kind of hope because you still are able to distinguish reality from clinging on to something where it leaves, because you have to take into account not just you, but your family as well
Mm-hmm.
when you make these decisions, right? So I have a client now. She's young, um, mid 40s, diagnosed terminally. And she said, I'm okay. I don't want to be a burden to anyone. So she opted not to, go through any treatment. So she's just traveling now, spending time with friends and family. That's okay too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So these are choices that you make. And for as long as your eyes are wide open and you understand these concepts and these principles in life,
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to be okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all of your insight and wisdom, Charity. And we do have to go. We are over time. But just one last thing also. Final message, as a grief coach, as a life and end of life doula, like how should we approach life, and where can we find also, information should monsters would like to, you know, join your retreat this weekend?
Okay, so I'm on both Instagram and Facebook, lifedoula.ph. I didn't change my handle in both platforms, so you can just send us a message or drop us a message also at Better Days Wellbeing Center.
Mm-hmm.
And to people who are at the crossroads of life, having health challenges and health issues, my first advice is don't wish for it to end right away. The instinct of human beings when we are pressed really hard and challenges come our way is we want the challenge to end.
Mm.
Perhaps a change in perspective is to find out the lesson that it's trying to give you at that particular point. Instead of asking why, maybe reframe the question and ask the question, what do you want me to learn here in this difficult phase of my life? I think asking that allows us to be able to breathe a little bit and put our heads above the water. And I think the parting words I want to say to our audience, to our 93.1 Monster audience is live life to the fullest. Live life every day according to your terms.
Mm.
Don't live anyone else's life because you have not defined what you want. The purpose will not come. You will have to really seek for it, intentionally seek for it. I mean, today you're doing very well at what you're doing, Nikki, but if another passion comes, be open to it. I don't know why I suddenly gave you that message. It's just an airdrop. I mean, if a passion, if a door opens, just be open to it.
Mm-hmm.
And always ask yourself, am I happy with what I'm doing? I think
Yeah.
that's very important. Life is too short for you to spend on things you're not happy about. Do not
Mm.
settle. In life and in love, do not settle. So that's it. Thank you, Nikki, for having me. I wish we can chat, and we can chat even after this program. You can always
Sure.
reach out to me, and we can have our own grief session if you
Oh
want.
my goodness. I have
So
many tears.
I have a really huge shoulders. Um, no joke. If you want to talk, that's an offer, a standing offer from me.
Hmm.
So yeah, you can reach out to me and we can talk some more. And for our audience who's listening, please reach out anytime to lifedoula.ph. And if you still have time, we have a couple of slots open for Living, Dying, and Loving, happening on Saturday, 8 to 4, Sunday, 8 to 4. We
Mm.
welcome you at Better Days Wellbeing Center. Thanks for having me, Nikki.
Yeah. Thank you so much as well, Charity. Once again, like so many things we talked about, so many difficult things that we talked about. I also kind of had a hard time in the middle, but necessary. Necessary, absolutely. So, Charity, many thanks for coming here and letting us understand more about grief, about life, about loving yourself as well. And we hope that we can try and apply those things also for the rest of our lives. Right. Well, monsters, that is the show. Thank you very much for keeping it locked. You do have Gail up next for Wild and Wicked, so keep it locked and keep her company for now. Here's we're gonna be playing more music for you for now. So yeah, keep it locked. Only here on the Monster.